Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us one more time in Con Mary Rabago now in English. Thank you for making time to joining us, and as always I'm going to ask you to please go ahead and share this link so more people can join our conversation. Today we're actually talking about one of the problems that affect our communities, our homes, addictions. How does a life get changed with addictions? How can you get out of the addictions? Well, there's a lot of help out there, but first you have to make the decision to go ahead and ask for that help. And we're gonna hear for some stories today that it's definitely gonna bring you a world of possibilities of what you can do for those loved ones or for yourself if you are in that situation. So thank you again. This is Journalism with a Purpose. We'll be talking in the second half of our show with American Traditions Realty, three ladies that are movers and shakers in our community, and they're going to tell you and talk to you about the process of becoming a homeowner and how easy it is, even in the market that is for the sellers at this time. So it is an honor to have with me today in our house, Jason. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jason, you have an amazing story. You started in the world of drug addiction at the early age of only 14 years old.
14.
How do you started in that world? Can you walk us through the process? What was going on in your life that you decided just for fun to try drugs, or you were forced for peer pressure? Because as parents, most of us worry about that when it comes to our teenage kids.
Sure. Well, my story probably makes the parents even more nervous. I'm the youngest of four, born and raised in Central Phoenix, born at St. Joe's Hospital. Great parents, loving parents, very focused parents, very involved. But I was just intrigued. My parents threw cocktail parties. I had older siblings that were using alcohol and dabbling in drugs, and I was just curious. So at 13 or 14, I was sneaking into my dad's bar and started drinking, and I liked the effect. I liked what it did for me, and that's where it started. By the time I was 15, I was smoking pot. By the time, and it was fast. So
from one to another.
I went from alcohol to marijuana, and then with pot, for me, it was almost daily. I really liked the effect produced by smoking pot, and it was very available. But I was still a good student. I was still an athlete. I was still an important part of my family, but I was also learning how to hide it from my parents.
Wait a second there. Let's make a small parenthesis there, because I know a lot of parents listening to us right now are, like, for a lack of a better word, freaking out, thinking that their perfect child that is doing good in school, that is an athletic, figure in their school among their kids, also could be doing drugs. Well,
that was my experience. I can't tell it to you any other way other than I went to a private high school. They were very strict. The school was strict. My parents were strict. They knew what was going on. But where there is a will, there is a way.
In other words, Jason, you're telling me that it wasn't because you were not understood, because you were not cared for within your immediate family circle or around your school, your teachers, your supervisors. There was no lack of support. There was no, drama going around that you needed an escape. It was just curiosity.
It was curiosity. It was social. But no, to all those risk factors that we would typically want to rattle off to people, I had none of them.
None of that.
I was a good student. I was a good athlete. I was involved. I was in the marching band. Not particularly proud of that. That doesn't sound very cool.
Nowadays.
Nowadays. But I was. I mean, I did all of those things, and I started. But while that was happening, I was continuing to start using drugs and alcohol. By the time I was 16, it was a daily thing. My 16th birthday, I was with 6 or 8 of my closest friends, and we all tried LSD together to celebrate my 16th birthday.
To try it. Now, was there peer pressure also, or no?
I may have caused some.
You had made, wait a second, it was the other way around. So it wasn't that you succumbed to the peer pressure. you actually were the one inflicting that among your peers, your friends.
My parents would like to believe that it was my friends that were inducing me to get involved, but it was probably the other way around.
Now, now that you're out of the world and you help others in that process of getting out, why do you think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as parents is trying to find who to blame for that situation when, you know, it's found out that that child is experimenting or using drugs?
Yeah, I think just like any other problem, it's a lack of communication and being able to be honest and say what's really going on. And I think that you know, I'm not a parent. I was a step parent for a period of time, but unfortunately I no longer am. I lost my stepdaughter to this disease at the age of 25.
25.
Yeah.
So you actually went through the same nightmare that your parents went with you with a stepdaughter. Now the consequences were fatal for her.
They were.
How did that make you feel when you were not able to help her?
Miserable. I knew where drugs and alcohol would take someone that abused like I did, and I desperately wanted to try to help. But the reality is, even when they're young adults, if they don't want help, there's not a lot you can do. You end up having to watch people's lives unravel.
Now, Jason, a lot of people watching us right now have a loved one, or they're probably one of them in this situation where they want to help, they want to do the right thing, but no matter what they try, nothing seems to work. It's impotences that they feel and not being able to help to get them out of that, you know, dark place where they are with the abuse of drugs. What would you tell them? What is the best thing a family member of someone abusing drugs right now could do?
As a loved one, or when it's a significant other and you're watching their lives unravel, my personal experience would be to, you know, for a lack of a better term, the overused phrase is tough love. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, and consequences. I think that by and large, drug addicts and alcoholics always need help from a family member to pay their rent or to make that car payment. And when we're doing that, we are essentially enabling them. Thank you.
Now, it is really hard for a parent to say no for shelter for their kid, even if it's a young adult. It's not a minor anymore. We see those cases across the board in our community where parents are not willing to kick them out of the house, to force them to grow up, as you would say, or give them tough love, as you're saying. Why is that against the benefit of your loved one? Why do you really need to take that drastic measures with a kid, with a young adult, if that's one of your kids, in order for them to hit bottom and look for the help that they need?
Well, yeah, number one, we don't live in Chicago, so they can spend a night on the streets and be okay. And maybe that's what's going to grab their attention. I think that, or take them to a detox and drop them off there, or maybe even in a halfway house. I think the sooner that we act, the better our opportunities are to help them. You know, the reality is that I wasn't going to stop until I had no place left to go.
And is that what had to happen for you, in order for you to actually get out of the world?
Yes.
Can you walk us through that moment? How old were you? How many years were you in drugs? How bad it got, the usage of the drugs, in order for you to decide, I'm done with this? Sure.
You know, to microwave that story, it was pot and alcohol. But what really, and this is the whole time I'm living at my parents' home while I'm in high school. I graduate from high school. I go to university. I graduate from a state university down in Tucson. with a degree in molecular biology.
Incredible.
And then, but lockstep with that, you know, seemingly okay on the outside, is on the inside I'm a mess, and I'm using a lot of drugs and alcohol. I leave the state. My older brother offers me a job, and that's when I really got deeply involved with cocaine.
So it changed. The grade of the drug just went up.
Absolutely, and now I'm smoking cocaine. So now I was smoking crack, and my life became completely leveled in every aspect. You know, emotionally, spiritually, financially. You know, it obviously shattered my relationship with all of my family members. The older brother has to fire me. I moved back to Phoenix, and I'm 27 years of age. My life is a mess, and I've learned my lesson. I know I need to stay away from drugs and alcohol. My parents allow me to move in with their house. I'm humiliated that at the age of 27, I have the only people that can, I have to rely on my parents for support. And all of that being said, I continued to use.
In the process.
In that process.
Now, let me ask you a quick question to you also, Jason. When you talked about that you had a university degree, that you had a high-level paying job, that means that a lot of people in our community, in our society right now, have those status quo right now.
Right.
But behind doors, their life is a mess like yours.
Yes.
As family members, as community members, how can we identify who needs the help, and how can we offer that help in a positive way, in a way that would be receptive?
That's a great question. I'm not even sure I know how to answer that, other than there are a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of community resources. There's lots of, as it turned out in my case, 12-step organizations. You know, churches can get involved. Lots of different social, you know, if there's insurance involved, there's if there's an employer involved, and the employer may have, you know, a human resource department that could facilitate. So there's lots of different avenues for people to get help. I think the key to it is communicating and being honest when you see that there's a problem with your brother, or when you see there's a problem with your spouse or your kid. Don't shirk that conversation. Don't pass that difficult conversation.
Now, thank you so much for everybody joining us today. Please, we ask you to share this link so more people can get information, can join the conversation, and in particular, learn from the experience that Jason is sharing with us right now in order for you to be able to help your loved one, that person close to you, or it could be yourself that it's in the need of this kind of help. Lourdes Urias joining us today, Roberto Flores, Julio Gordillo. We also have Sandra Hernandez. Thank you for joining us. Maria de la Cruz Ortiz Castro. Dimitri Trilli, too, thank you so much for joining. Hard love is sometimes the best love. That's the comment that he shares with us. We also have Jackie Lopez, Carmen Alicia Garcia Quijada, all the way from Sonora. Thank you for joining us. And we have Laura Vega and Arturo Ibarra. Only God can help me. Amen. So a lot of people find in religion, in their faith, the help that they need to get out of it. Was that your case?
No, it wasn't. For me, it was when my parents threatened to kick me out of their house. And
reality check then.
Yeah, and I had had an opportunity to hang out with people that lived homeless. It takes a certain skill set. I don't have that skill set, and I'm not interested in learning it. So I finally told my parents a certain amount of the truth. That I told them first that I had a drinking problem.
So they didn't know it was a drug addiction yet.
No, they didn't. I couldn't tell them the truth. I didn't have the courage to tell my parents that I was a drug addict.
And
I was too humiliated.
At this point you were already smoking crack cocaine.
Oh yeah.
So it was not only the pot
usage. I had a
usage.
hot pipe in my pocket when I told my parents I had a small drinking problem.
Now, a lot of people that are watching right now, Jason, can relate to you, and they say, I am a functional alcoholic. How do you know when it's too many drinks during the day, during the week? Is there a parameter to know that, okay, if I'm drinking 2 drinks a week, 2 drinks a day, this is too much? What is okay and what is not okay? How do you identify? Because, social drinkers, there are too many of them, that they go to events,
right,
and those events are 2-3 times a week. Is that an alcoholic? What is the definition of that?
Well, where I got sober in the 12-step community, it's pretty simple. When I start, I can't predict the results. And when I stop, I can't stay stopped.
In other words, once you lose control of yourself and you don't know.
Once I start, I don't know how it's going to end. Sometimes it's a game of pool and it's fun and I get home safely. Other times I wake up out of a 3-day blackout. I just don't know which way it's going to go once I start. I can't predict the results.
Walk us through how the relationships were affected. At 27, between 14 years when you started the usage of alcohol and drugs, and 27, you had to have some kind of relationships in between with women. How would those relationships affected because of the use?
Oh, well, they burned it. I burned every relationship that ever meant anything to me. Girlfriends, my male friends, the people that I grew up with, my close, my immediate family, they were all of those relationships were burned as a result of my use.
Now, we live in a society that, with the legalization of marijuana, pot, in states, we are seeing what's happening in Colorado. We have it now here in our state, and it makes it seem natural. It makes it seem medicinal, and it's okay. It's not that bad. Even some parents will say, well, it's just pot. They're just experimenting. It's part of being a teenager. What would you say to those parents?
As a teenager, I would want you, if it was my child, I would want them to stay away from drugs or alcohol until they're an adult, until their mind is completely formed. But in terms of marijuana being legal or illegal, honestly, people smoke too much pot and they go home, they don't beat their significant others. But that certainly seems to happen a lot with alcohol. So
alcohol is more of a violent drug than pot, from your point of view?
Yeah, I would.
The effects.
I would say that, yeah.
And you've been that road.
Yeah.
You've been through that road many times. Well, we have Imelda Valdez. This is a very good topic. We have Angelica Macias. Hi, Mari. The link was shared. Thank you so much for doing so. El Toro Castillo is joining us. Margie Bernal. Imelda Valdez. A really good job, and many people are going through this situation. So this is the type of help that they need. Now, when we want to offer that help, you were forced by your parents with tough love. That was your epiphany moment.
Yes.
But at the same time, was it that you were tired of that lifestyle? Was it something in you saying, this is not me, I can aspire to better situations, better outcome of my life? Or you were too much hooked in the world of, getting the next hit? When
you're in the middle of that tornado, it's very difficult to, it's almost unreasonable to ask a functioning, a using drug addict or alcoholic to make rational decisions. We're not very good at that. So it took a couple of weeks for me to be separated from drugs and alcohol for the last time, for me to get to that point where I finally was able to see clearly how many terrible decisions I've made, and more importantly, how harmful and hurtful and selfish I had become as a result of all of those poor decisions.
Poor decisions that definitely took a wrong turn in your life.
Oh, yeah.
You could say that many years that you wasted, you lost. Can you recuperate that time? What are you doing nowadays, in this moment, in order for you to make up for that last time?
So, yeah, as a result of getting sober, part of that 12-step process is once you've been given this gift, and I believe it to be grace, that once that I was received that gift, then it's incumbent on me to share that with anyone that's interested. So I try to facilitate, they call it sponsoring. I sponsor men and helping them to get sober. I donate, I give a lot of my time. I take this message of recovery into the local jails. and just try to give back to the community and be a functional member of my community rather than a drain, like I was for so many years.
Well, that's an amazing turnaround. But Jason, unfortunately nowadays, the society that we live now, it seems like it's more the consistent of the bombard of forcing or putting peer pressure not only in our teenage kids, but also within, you know, the high level people that are, whether in the environment, a work environment or politics, you name it, with the alcohol, with the drug use, the edge that everybody's looking for, the excuses of making like pot, making it, you know, medicinal, making it, because I was recently in a tour in one of these places, right, dispensaries, and they have a screen with a list.
Did you get a free sample?
No, I did, and I passed the offer. They did offer, but I passed the offer. So they have this this screen with a list of conditions that qualifies you in order for you to get the card from your doctor. And honestly, while those, you know, the list of conditions were just rolling and scrolling down, I could identify at least 7 of them that me, a healthy, you know, 40-plus woman had. Insomnia, stress, anxiety, frustrations, muscle pain, you name it. It is the most easiest thing nowadays to be able to do that. Now, like you mentioned, you started with alcohol, you move in really rapidly into pot, and before you knew it, you were already in cocaine. Not only using cocaine and snorting, but also smoking cocaine. So that learning process, the dark learning process that you have, how do you bring that to your conversations when you're trying to get somebody the help that they need, that they mostly don't want? Because most people in addictions are not ready to let it go, and they find excuses. They think that they can control it, or am I wrong?
Oh yeah, no, so that's where it starts, is we all believe that somehow I can magically turn that corner and go back to using it safely. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to, from my perspective, surrender. When you've finally reached a point where you're in enough pain that you're willing to accept the possibility that you don't know what's best for you, and that you need outside help.
Well, we have Ian Davis saying alcohol is the gateway drug. Then we also have Elsa Jenkins saying that she heard a testimony that says that it was so saddened for her because they told her, I have the control. I know when to decide to stop. Is that a denial of user?
Huge. I mean, if you're a real alcoholic or a real drug addict, it's been my experience that we can't stop on our own short of a spiritual experience. That's what happened for me.
What would be your recommendation? What would be your advice to those parents dealing with the teenagers that, you know, as it is, it's hard to communicate nowadays with teenagers, right? But particularly when you discover that they're using drugs, and it could be, you know, pills, popping pills is a popular thing nowadays. Oh, sure. Cocaine and marijuana seem to be so inoffensive nowadays with the type of synthetic drugs that they're using. So what would be your advice? How do you approach that?
One, put the phones down, not yours.
Take the phone away from the teen. That would be the first thing.
I mean from the parents.
From the parents.
From all of them, so that there's some communication. And, you know, maybe the parents need to find a 12-step. There's 12-step organizations for the loved ones that are equally as important as 12-step organizations for the drug addict and alcoholic. And it's just, I think they need to get informed. They need to find out what's really going on. And they're probably going to find that out from another parent that's already gone through that experience. Parents, you're not alone. There's places out there for you to get help and for you to get information. And it's going to take a lot of hard work. And it's, don't give up.
That is the message. Well, we cannot be more grateful. Thanking you also, Jason, for sharing your story, for giving your testimonial, because I know with a lot of people that are listening to us, are watching it right now, it's going to hit home. and they're going to have hope in helping that loved one, or if they're the ones in that situation, they're going to reach out for the help. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for your suffering, and especially for sharing your story so others ones can get help. We'll go to a small break, and we'll be back with the ladies from American Traditions Realty that they have a lot of good information for you to stop renting and start wasting your money in rent and become a homeowner. We'll be right back.
It has been a wonderful experience. I think that having the right level of information at all times to understand how together we can do a better job is great. You guys are great partners, and you took the time to understand why the campaign was important.
Is engage the community, so it becomes a conversation. It becomes a community project. When you call people together, thousands of people will come. There's no other agency can do that.
Mary's viewers are very loyal, very dedicated people to her, and so they trust her.
Mary Rabago Productions was much more timely, and the quality of the product when it was all said and done was fantastic.
We really do need a production company that understands not only the language, the culture, but has the professionalism.
We would support Mary Rabago's production in a professional manner. We know the quality, we know she is professional, and she has a team of people that are caring and very sensitive to the Latino issues in the United States.
My friend, do you want your children to fly as high as the eagles? With education, everything is possible. That is why Imagine Elementary College is the best option in the area. They provide the tools necessary to make sure your children are successful. Free transportation. Your children deserve the best, and that starts with a solid education. They provide classes that practice STEM, music, and sports. That is why I, Mary Rabago, recommend Imagine Elementary College, a free charter school. Call today 520-723-5391. 520-723-5391. The basis of success is a good education for our children. That is why Imagine Prep College prepares them to succeed in the fields of greater demand in our economy, like science, technology, and engineering. With advanced academic instruction, choose Imagine Prep College for your children. Give them the best gift you could give them, a quality education for free. Call today, 520-424-2790. 520-424-2790. I, Mary Rabago, recommend it.
It has been a wonderful experience. I think that having the right level of information at all times to understand how together we can do a better job is great. You guys are great partners, and you took the time to understand why the campaign was important.
Is engage the community, so it becomes a conversation. It becomes a community project. When you call people together, thousands of people will come. There's no other agency can do that.
Mary's viewers are very loyal, very dedicated people to her, and so they trust her.
Mary Rabago Productions was much more timely, and the quality of the product when it was all said and done was fantastic.
We really do need a production company that understands not only the language, the culture, but has the professionalism.
We would support Mary Rabago's production in a professional manner. We know the quality, we know she is professional, and she has a team of people that are caring and very sensitive to the Latino issues in the United States.
My friend, do you want your children to fly as high as the eagles? With education, everything is possible. That is why Imagine Elementary College is the best option in the area. They provide the tools necessary to make sure your children are successful. Free transportation. Your children deserve the best, and that starts with a solid education. They provide classes that practice STEM, music, and sports. That is why I, Mary Rabago, recommend Imagine Elementary College, a free charter school. Call today, 520-723-5391, 520-723-5391. The basis of success is a good education for our children. That is why Imagine Prep College prepares them to succeed in the fields of greater demand in our economy, like science, technology, and engineering. With advanced academic instruction, choose Imagine Prep College for your children. Give them the best gift you could give them, a quality education for free. Call today, 520-424-2790, 520-424-2790. I, Mary Rabago, recommend it.
Remember that we're live every morning, 10 to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday in Spanish, right here at Mary Rabago Productions on YouTube, Facebook, obviously Facebook Live, Instagram, and also on Twitter, but 11:90 a.m. also. Now, we do this show once a week because we want to bring the information, the education about different topics that affect our daily lives. Drug addictions is definitely something, unfortunately, too common nowadays in our families, in our communities, and we are so grateful that Jason was able to share with us his story and his freedom now that he was able to become sober and helping other people. Now, another area that we need not a lot of education is definitely when it comes to our money, finances. And most of us are afraid, or we automatically disqualified ourselves from becoming homeowners. Well, I have three ladies here that they know all about the world. Vanessa Torres, thank you so much for joining us. We have Ana de Anda. How are you?
Good.
And Dulce Matus. ¿Qué tal?
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. My English and my Spanish are getting mixed today, so just bear with me. Now, most of the people in our community tend to say, no, I'm not ready. I don't have the funding. But they don't even try to get educated in the process. And yesterday, as we were talking, in the live shot that we did with you and Ana keeps saying, it's so easy. It's easier than renting. Is it for reals a lot easier to buy a home than to qualify to rent a home?
They ask for more information when you're renting a house than when you're purchasing a house.
You're kidding me.
No.
Yes. For reals?
Yes, but that's
true. I actually know someone who qualified to buy a house, and he got into an argument with the wife. He moved out of the house, and he tried to go rent an apartment, and they said, no, we're not going to, because they actually run a background check. So anything that you may have a misdemeanor could cause a problem, and they just won't rent to you. Now, if you're going to buy a house, they're not going to run a background check on you. They're going to check your credit, and they're going to, look at what different programs you may qualify, but they're not going to be as strict as like, oh, we're going to go and check what kind of life, you're living, your lifestyle, background.
Now, to rent an apartment or a house is usually you do the deposit, the first month and the last month, and I don't know how many other things they. So it's thousands of dollars you have to put down. And yesterday, Anna was telling us with $700, this lady actually closed on her house. Is that true?
Yes, there's down payment assistance programs, and so you can use that, and you can get closing costs from the seller.
Yeah, I have 3 different down payment assistance programs at the company I work for. And the lowest score that we go to for down payment assistance on an FHA is a 620 score. We have different programs based on the credit score, but the lowest one we have is a 620. Like you said, when you're going to rent the house, then you need the first month, the last month, and a deposit. That's thousands of dollars. If you
$3,000 to $4,000.
If you qualify for down payment assistance, sometimes you just need to be prepared with as little as $1,500. You may get some of that money back at closing, depending on, you know, if the seller's going to pay your closing costs or not. But it's a lot easier. We had a client recently close last month. She only put like $700 down, and you know, she got part of her.
That's incredible. Now I want to hear about the story. The lady that called yesterday, and she was qualified right away. So a lot of people that say, oh, it's going to be a difficult process. I'm going to have too much information, too much paperwork. Share the story with them.
Well, we are very blessed to have Vanessa Torres, who is always available to meet with the clients in a one-on-one, give them a consultation, and sometimes between a half an hour to an hour, they walk out with their pre-qual. And sometimes when they're walking out with their pre-qualification, they're like, in shock, because they say, well, I didn't think it was going to be so fast, or I didn't think I was going to qualify. And that's one of the biggest obstacles and myths that are out there, that people think that they don't qualify, but they never took the time to make an appointment, to make a consultation with a professional, and bringing those documents to see if they qualify. I think that's something that we really need to emphasize, to make sure that people take the time to call us, go to the one-on-one appointment, and sometimes even Vanessa can work in other states too, so if they cannot make their to a physical appointment, they can always call us.
So in other words,
email.
Walk us through this, because this is amazing. Just for people to get the idea. Yes. So they call you, we were in the show between 10 and 11. They call you right after the show, and then what happened?
And she said she actually is a business owner, and she needed us to be able to go to her place because it was just going to be easier. So Vanessa made an appointment.
And you go, like
she went in the morning. Yes, we went to her beauty salon. And she was literally in shock. She couldn't believe she was qualified. She was like, is that it? She said, but I had 2 lates on my credit cards. And she's like, yeah, they're showing, and you still qualified me? And she was pre-qualified prior to $150, and Vanessa qualified her for $280.
$280,000. So that means that now she has the hard problem now to go and find a house, which imagine that.
But the thing is that she was qualified for $250, but then she had the 2 lates and no longer qualified to buy a house.
But with Vanessa,
that's why she was in shock, and she kept asking her, "Are you sure? Did you check my credit?" She asked, and she couldn't. And when I was talking to her, she's like, "But I just want you guys to give me information." I'm like, "Yeah, that's just information, and you just have this
go and look for the house that you want."
Yeah, mainly taxes, pay stubs, and she just couldn't believe it. She was in shock.
Well, this kind of stories is important for people to know, because I think, and we have talked and we have this conversation too many times, that the biggest obstacle for members in our community to become homeowners is that they auto-disqualify themselves. In other words, in their mind, they already say no, 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 without even asking, knocking on the door, picking up the phone and calling 623, see? Yes. 623-271-8820. 623-271-8820. I promise I was going to memorize the number. So there it is. That is a number for American Traditions Realty, where there's people right there, right now, live, waiting for your call, where you can get this information. So Vanessa, walk us through the process, because it's amazing to hear this. And people say, that didn't really happen. How often did this kind of situation happen? Would they come to you and they're pre-qualified right there and then?
Well, this is like, it really doesn't take that long to get someone pre-qualified. If you're going to a loan officer that have the experience and they know what they're doing, it really only takes about 30 minutes to actually make a decision, a pre-qualification on a client, if they know how to calculate the income, if they know how to properly, you know, look at the credit and make a determination, run it through the system. It really doesn't take that long. So usually they just come in. What I do is I ask for the permission to run their credit report. They do it in writing, either, you know, write it in a letter, or they send me an email giving me permission. It takes about 5 minutes to run the credit.
5 minutes?
Yes. They got to take their driver's license, their last 30 days worth of pay stubs, taxes for the last 2 years in W-2s, and the last 2 months of bank statements.
And that's it.
Yeah. Once I run the credit, I populate the liabilities into it, review the income, make the determination based on whatever they've been making within the last 2 years and year to date. Basically, if there's any questions regarding the income, change in jobs or position or raises or salary, then, you know, we talk about it right there and then. Then I review their assets to see if they have the down payment. If they don't have a down payment, then they tell me, well, I need a down payment assistance. And that's how I determine what kind of program they're going to go into. Run it through the system, and then that's when I tell them this is how much you qualify for. This is what your interest rate will be based on today's rates. And, you know, are you ready to move forward? Yes.
So in other words, Dulce, after Vanessa does that process, you're telling us that within a 30-day period to 60-day period, that person can be moving into their new home?
I think the hardest part, once that you're qualified, is to selecting a home that you really love it. Because it's like looking for something that you fall in love at first sight. And sometimes this particular person was very lucky to qualify for 280, but we can help anybody with any budget. And we'll accommodate to everybody's budget and everybody's desires. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna tell you what's the inventory out there. We're gonna go with you and show you houses on the weekends, mornings, afternoons, until you find that house that you really like.
And then you get this really picky clients, right?
No comment.
Come on.
No comment
right now. We won't mention names, but
no, it's really important. It's one of the biggest
Customer
investments that people make in their entire lives. So for us, it's very important that our clients really select the home that they really love, because they're going to be there for a long time. And for some people, that process takes a week, and for some others, it may take 6 months to find the house they want. But either way, we have a commitment to making sure that they really love the home they like, that we really educate them in the process, that we tell them what their rights as a consumer, and that we successfully close that transaction.
Successfully close the transaction. I cannot imagine what family that has been renting for decades all of a sudden has their keys of their own home in their hands. Why is it so important what you three do as a team for those families? But it's not just a transaction. I know you guys very well, and I know that there's passion behind this. And unfortunately, not everybody comes and is qualified immediately, but that doesn't mean that they have to give up on their dream to become a homeowner, right?
No.
No, the key is most of it, like, and this is what I've been experiencing, you know, especially with the new company I work for. It's an amazing company. They have a lot of support, but most of it is the communication, and you know, that's the kind of like the clients, you communicate to them, you constantly pick up the phone and answer. You know, every time they call, I always try to pick up the phone, and I tell them, if I don't pick up the phone, text me and say, call me right away, it's urgent. I'll return the phone call. So it's always about calling them back, keeping that communication open, because whenever they don't hear from you, they think something's wrong. She's not going to be able to close my loan. Oh my God, they start freaking out. Nobody told me this. Nobody said I was going to need that. So that's something that I've learned, that you always got to give them that fuzzy feeling that everything's okay, and you know, so they can trust you, and they can have that confidence that they're actually going to be able to close the loan and own the house of their dreams. So
now, Ana, walk us through a scenario. What is the most difficult transaction that you have encountered helping others? What does it make it? But what does it make it difficult? People getting too excited and going and buying furniture and a car before closing on the house. What is it that it could be a hindrance in the process?
Well, that can be a big one. When we have people buying furniture before they have
$7,000 TV.
Yeah, you know, those furniture stores, they give you credit, they charge you like, she thought it was a car payment.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, no, it's a TV. Another thing, well, that's very challenging, but we've also, I think Vanessa's been a little bit humbled in everything she knows. She has a lot of experience, and that has helped us a lot, because we've had a lot of business owners. You know, we have somebody that had a plaza that was in construction and didn't have the money, the funds, and it was almost $1 million loan, and they're doing it. Then these people had been with a lot of other people, so we do commercial too.
You do commercial loans also.
Yes.
Now, for those people that are entrepreneurs like ourselves, and they might be making business in cash, can they qualify for a home?
Well, it depends. is it a home or a bit?
A loan.
A loan.
A
Yeah.
loan.
If you want the structure, yes. There's different kind of products for commercial properties. It could be an SBA, or it could be an actual direct commercial, depending on your situation. Yes, they even have stated income programs for, because we know that a lot of business owners, they don't show all the cash flow on their taxes, but they may have it in the deposits of their bank accounts. So there's different programs, and yes, it'll comes down to down payment and credit again. So.
And then we have the jumbo loans, which are for people that can buy those $1 million homes.
Not there yet, but
so there's different scenarios. And we've been able to help customers in all different scenarios. We have investors that are buying fourplexes that are out of state also, that are getting qualified by her. So there's a lot of different scenarios, and some of them are very challenging, but everything's possible. Where there's a way, there's a will.
Yeah,
I like that. And I remember,
where there's a will, there's a way. Sorry, I said it backwards.
The number to call is 623-271-8820. 623-271-8820. And I have a complaint for you. Do you know a lady by the name of Rosa Maria Soto? Because she only joins my Facebook when I have her daughter with me. So that is my complaint. Thank you so much for joining us, Rosa Maria, and for sharing the link today. Now, what would be the first advice that you would give, Dulce, to those people considering buying their own home? Where do we start?
Well, the first advice is to call us and visit us and make that one-on-one appointment. Because even though that, as you mentioned, if they don't qualify right at that moment, we can give them that guidance to tell them, look, you need to go and open these credit cards or secure credit cards so you can go and get those credit scores. Because the mistake that you can do is to say, well, I want to build credit, I'm going to go buy a car, a brand new car, and then now you have debt that it's going to be counted against your ability to buy a new property. So making sure that before you do those moves, you come and talk to us, even though that your plan to buy a house may be 6 months away from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. You can never be too prepared.
And that's where I wanted to emphasize, because a lot of people that are struggling with credit, that they lost a home, during the crisis in the market, that they had some difficulties, with job and, and the bad economic phase that we've been experiencing in the last few years. What do you recommend for them? Because I know the initial call comes through Ana or Dulce, and they refer them immediately to you. How do we work to getting that credit back to a status that will get us qualified?
It's good that you're asking that. We actually, the company I work for, we have a product called the Second Chance, where you could actually buy a house after a year of you losing it.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Somebody says here.
Música para mis oídos.
There's actually two
programs.
Programs. The first one is an FHA loan called the Back to Work program, where you can actually purchase a house after you lost you foreclosed on a house after 12 months. And obviously, you only qualify for that program if you foreclose due to losing a job or your income decreasing by 20% or more. Then you can get back into an FHA after a year. You take a counseling class and you wait a month, and then you apply, and then you get approved.
You're kidding me.
Yes. Obviously, the foreclosure's got to have a valid reason, like I said, loss of income or loss of a job. Those are the only ones. Now, the other one, if none of that apply, we have a separate one where you have to come in with 10% down. And obviously, the interest rate is based on the credit and, the down payment. And it requires 10% down, but they don't look so much at why you lost the year prior.
So there are many programs, there are many opportunities, depending on the needs of each person that calls you guys. Now here, the key, Dulce, is to get educated. And why is it so important, and why you guys focus so much in educating the buyer?
Because once that you provide that service and making sure that your clients know the process, they trust you, and they're gonna come back to you because they trust you. But the other thing that we're so passionate about education is because, unfortunately, on the Latino community, we're always facing scams. Whether it's in housing, immigration, or any other topic, we are always being scammed. So it is important that when you are educated, when you're talking to professionals, people who are licensed, and that you have 2 or 3 different perspectives, that you're not gonna get yourself in that position. It can always happen because you never know what's out there, but the better educated that you are, the more better decisions you're gonna make, and you're gonna avoid those scams.
Now, Ana, why is it important to buy instead of renting. That is a main thing, and why the payment assistant could be the door to becoming a homeowner.
Well, because sometimes you want to having your own place, you have your house goes up in equity, so it's like a savings that your house. We had a customer that bought a house 2 years ago, and she ended up making $50,000 when she sold her house.
In 2 years? Incredible.
Yeah, and it's, your money, you're paying rent wherever you live, and it's not a hard process. I think people think it's very difficult to own, have the American dream. But it's not that difficult if you're with the right people and you get educated on the process. Another thing, it helps you with your taxes. Right, Vanessa?
Yes, you actually get to write off the interest. So every at the end of every year, your bank is going to send you what's a form called the 1098, and it tells you the whole amount of tax, the interest that you pay throughout the year. You get to write that off. You get to write the taxes, that you pay on the property, and under certain circumstances, you can even write off the mortgage insurance if you're paying private mortgage insurance or FHA mortgage insurance. Obviously, you have to be under a certain income bracket in order to be able to write it off, but you get all those benefits.
Now, if we have people that have a struggle with, the credit, many situations, divorces, that's one of the things that, I don't know why it comes to mind, where things really get out of hand with your credit, no matter how much you control it or you try to control it. So what would you tell them? Do they have a second chance, like you mentioned on these programs?
Of course, and I've done a lot of them. I had, clients come over and say, you know what,
bankruptcy.
I have
bankruptcy.
I have all of this late payments on this credit card, but in reality, this is because of my divorce, and the judge actually awarded that to her or to him, but he just decided not to pay on it. So therefore, I don't know. Yeah, I'm affected. Obviously, you get a copy of the decree. If the decree, states that the other spouse, was supposed to pay for that, and we actually disregard that, we can manually underwrite. I had a client once that the judge awarded the property to the spouse, and she was supposed to keep paying on it. She foreclosed on the house, and she was supposed to refinance. She didn't do any of that stuff. So now we have here a client. It's like, I have a foreclosure within the last 8 months, but it wasn't mine. It's on your divorce decree. You disregarded it. You manually downgraded, and you still get approved for it because the judge said it's not your responsibility. At that time, you're no longer liable for it. So it all comes down to what's on it. We can make exceptions. We can manually downgrade it. It goes back to FICO score. If the FICO score is not there, I can pretty much guide them onto what they need to do in order to increase their score. But there's so many ways to make it work. So
how important it is to start with this process, because a lot of people want immediately to go and see houses. And those people, like I always say, that they have the taste of a champagne with a beer budget. The most of us do, right? Especially women. We want a big kitchen, a fancy kitchen, and the master bedroom. I think those are the key.
and the closet.
Oh, the walk-in closet. Please do not forget about the walk-in closet. That is very, very important. So we focus on all that aspects without starting from the point of of initiation to actually make it happen.
The first step is always to figure out the financing in your budget. I know the most exciting step, and that's where I'm so happy to be a real estate agent, is to go and see the houses when people faces really get really happy when they find them.
They only get to see the happy part. We get to see the stressful one. Oh my God.
You're the one that deals with
Yeah.
But I really want to emphasize that even though that if you already spoke with another loan officer and you got declined, is that you need to talk to 2 or 3, or you need to talk to us. You need to talk to Vanessa, because
it's like going to the doctor. You need a second opinion all the time, right?
That is correct, because we do not walk away from the challenge. Sometimes some loan officers may see a difficult situation and they would tell the client, you know what, you don't qualify, when in fact it's not that they don't qualify. What the truth is that that person doesn't want to take that challenge or doesn't want to take the time. So I think that's a disservice to our community. I think we need to be very honest, like a professional people, and say look, this is a team effort. I'm going to do everything that I can in my power for you to be able to get that house, but you need to do your part.
Exactly.
You
They
need to
actually have
pay
to do
those
that.
collections. You need to pay things on time. You need to save for the down payment or the closing cost, or in the event that they don't qualify for down payment assistance. But there's a lot of help out there. And also, as real estate agents, it's our duty to negotiate that contract and find sellers who are going to help with the closing costs too.
That's very important. Now, again, we have talked recently that we're in the seller's market, meaning the person that is trying to sell their house, they have the hand, you know, the upper hand when it comes to that. How can you make it a good transaction for somebody buying the house if we are in a seller's market? Ana?
Well, you always try to find the deals. There's always deals out there, even though it is a seller's market. We use our convenience. When we're representing the seller, we don't want to give anything. But when we represent the buyer, we ask for everything. Negotiating closing costs, you negotiate home warranties. There's a lot of negotiation that can be done, and there's always opportunities out there. So it's just looking for the right one and listening to what the customer needs, the needs of the customer.
Let's say the scenario is somebody that their credit has been very affected in the last few years. Where should they start? Where should they start? It's just the hair. I'm sorry. We're live here. Yes, just move the hair so it's not in the mic. As simple as that. Where do we start when it comes to rebuilding our credit, and how fast can that happen? Because you have amazing stories of how in a heartbeat you can get 100 points upper and in the score for a client. Talk to us about that.
We start by running the credit. A lot of the times they'll tell me like, well, this is my story, this is my score, this is what I have. I really cannot make a determination on what we need to do in order to help them unless I run my own credit. Sometimes they'll bring somebody, you know, like they run it somewhere else and they give it to me. I don't know if anything has changed since that person run the credit, so I always feel more comfortable running it. So we start by running the credit first of all. Then from there I look at the accounts, see if there's anything that we can remove quickly, if we can pay down a credit card, because a lot of the times they may have a low score and it doesn't mean that they have bad credit. It's just the usage on the credit card. So
really, that is a trick then. Ladies, no more shoes and purses.
Yes, don't max out your credit cards, because that's gonna, when you're getting scored, they're gonna look at you with the ability of how you use your credit. You gotta be smart about it. It's best to have 5 different credit cards and keep the balances a little below 30% of its limit than having just one and keep it at 100%.
Really? I always thought that it was only good to have one credit card, so no.
No, it's best to have, like, you can spread the balances amongst and then just have it at 30% of its limit rather than having a credit card maxed out. So they're always going to look at your available credit when they're, you know, scoring, you know, your credit.
What about medical bills? Can you negotiate to pay less on them and to not show on the credit? How does that work?
Oh yes, you can actually, well, we don't really negotiate to pay less, because the only way you're going to get them off your credit is if you pay them off in full. A lot of our clients, you know, call and negotiate that if I pay it off, will you take it off my credit? A lot of them are under the HIPAA laws. They're supposed to, once they're paying off, they're supposed to get it off, because they're not supposed to be reporting their medical history, and that's part of it.
Right.
So you call them, you tell them that, and they basically take it off, but it's what you tell them and how they're going to remove it.
That's what it is. So in other words, see why we're asking this kind of questions? Because we need to educate ourselves in the process, because these minor situations that happened years ago could be affecting your present, particularly in your credit and your ability to become a homeowner. Any advice that you want to share? We are about 1:30 away from saying bye to our community, but I want to make sure everybody is noting this number, 623-271-8820. I'm so proud of myself. I actually memorized it. 623-271-8820 is the number for American Traditions Realty, where you can call them. You can get the information. They're bilingual. All of them speak Spanish and English, whatever your preference is, but particular their knowledge in this area. So now, any advice?
Well, talking about credit, you can get a free copy of your credit report going to free annual credit report, and by law you can get 3 copies by the credit bureaus, and that's something that I would prefer that you call us, that you make an appointment with Vanessa. But if for some reason you're not ready or you just want to check out your credit, that's one resource that you can look up.
Well, again, the website so they can...
Free annual credit report.
Anna, any advice that they can put in practice right away in order for them to become a homeowner soon?
Give us a call so you can get pre-qualified for your home.
Yeah.
The one thing we should be always vigilant in our credit.
Yes, pay your bills on time, all the time. Keep your credit card balances low, 30% of its limit, and don't let any of the, utility bills to go into collections.
Well, thank you so much to Vanessa, Ana, and Dulce for joining us today. Thank you for joining us, for sharing the link. Two topics that are very important to our community, drug addictions and how to become a homeowner. Yes, you can. You just have to pick up the phone and call. This was Journalism with a Purpose con Mary Rabago, now in English. Have a wonderful rest of the day.